I can't believe something if it doesn't make sense are more likely to believe in things that don't make sense than even religious people. My life work, to a certain extent, has been to bring the Torah to the world.
What if a single voice could challenge the entire educational establishment? Dennis Prager, a broadcaster, author, and co-founder of PragerU, has spent decades doing just that.
If you don't have wisdom, you can't do good. If you rely on your heart or even your conscience, the chances of you doing good are very, very small. You need wisdom. The greatest miracle is that you and I are talking, that you and I exist, that the universe exists. If one doesn't see that as a miracle, then one doesn't understand biblical faith.
From his early days advocating for Soviet Jews to becoming a nationally syndicated radio host, in 2009, he co-founded PragerU, a digital platform delivering concise videos on topics ranging from history to economics, all through a conservative lens.
Gratitude is the mother of the two biggest things in life, goodness and happiness. The secular think you don't need God, and many religious people think you don't need reason. And they're both wrong. If you want to learn and grow, doesn't matter how old you are.
In this episode, we delve into Dennis Prager's journey from radio waves to digital platforms and explore how he's reshaping conversations around education, values, and culture.
Dennis, I'm excited to do this. This is going to be a lot of fun. So you have taken a very ambitious task of making ancient biblical wisdom accessible through rational analysis. I want to understand what sparked your first realization that this bridge between reason and faith is necessary.
Oh, I can answer quite easily. That's the only way I have faith. If it doesn't make sense, I don't believe it. It sounds radical, and by the way, among believers, it might be radical because many people in any of the biblical faiths or any faith do not allow something not making sense to impede their belief. And I'm not saying they should. I'm just saying that in answer to your question, I can't believe something if it doesn't make sense. But I want people to understand something. This secular people are more likely to believe in things that don't make sense than even religious people. So I know anyone who is not religious, the religious, they believe in so many things that don't make sense. And by the way, to a certain extent, that's true. But no religious person believes men give birth. Millions of secular people say men give birth. Now, to say the least, that doesn't make sense. In fact, it's a lie. So no secular person should be on any high horse. We are impervious to the irrational. Baloney. Reason is rare among believers and among non-believers.
Maybe just for people who don't know your work and sort of your background, just very briefly, give us like a brief background of the role that God played in your life or the inflection point. Because I think you grew up in a modern Orthodox Jewish family. So obviously God was always there to some degree. But what was a notable event or a notable moment that sort of reinforced the idea of God, religion, even the Bible, the Torah in your life?
Again, I'm an outlier. For better or for worse, but I know me, and I know a lot about the world. I marched to the beat of a different drummer from a very early age. And I'm very open about my life, and the reason for my hesitation is because even though I say this often, it's not easy for people to hear, especially religious people. I find the commandment to love God difficult. I've always found it difficult. I still find it difficult. Belief in God is easy. Atheism doesn't make sense. A creator makes sense. So there's no question to my mind that there's a God. But loving God, which is a commandment in the Bible, and for Christians, that's the first great commandment. The second is love your neighbor. That's why I say I know that for many religious people this is difficult to hear, but I'm very honest about all of my faith. I'm open, not forget honest. I'm open about it. Given all the suffering on earth, the unjust suffering, I find it hard to love God. I work on it, but I do love, there is something religious I love, and that is the Torah. And while I love the Bible, I love the Torah more. That's the first 5 books of the Bible. They have a special role. They are the basis of the Old and New Testaments. Everything is there. Creation, Garden of Eden, 10 Commandments, love God, love your neighbor. It's all there. If the Torah wasn't there, there would be no Judaism, there would be no Christianity, there would be no Western civilization. The problem is that most people don't understand these 5 books. They have a vague notion of some of the stories, and that's the end of it. So my life at work, to a certain extent, has been to bring the Torah to the world. And my final statement, since you asked about God in my life and so on, I always say, I don't believe in the Torah because I believe in God. I believe in God because I believe in the Torah. It is so unlike anything else ever written. I can't believe it was man-made.
Why do you think, and I have ideas, but I need to understand yours. Obviously, this is your interview, not mine, but I do believe that society is increasingly getting more secular and there's less God in society. And I think that there's a whole host of problems that come with that for a variety of reasons. The most basic of being if there is no traditional version of God in people's minds and they replace that God with some other version of God. But why do you think, or why did you think that it was very important to draw these rational analyses from Torah to show this bridge between a biblical text and how we sort of live our day to day?
So in order to answer you, I have to first make the case for wisdom. Wisdom is infinitely more important than knowledge and infinitely more important than IQ, infinitely more important than good intentions, a good heart. Wisdom is everything. And without wisdom, no good can be done. We can't rely on good intentions. The number of people who supported the greatest mass murder movement in history, communism, with good intentions is very large. So intentions mean nothing. Why did anybody in the West support Stalin? The one of the 2 greatest mass murderers in history, the other one being Mao. Hitler's in 3rd place, at least in terms of numbers. And the answer is they were fools. And a fool is the opposite of a wise person. That's the opposite. Wisdom, foolishness. They are the polarities. So if you don't have wisdom, you can't do good. If you rely on your heart or even your conscience, the chances of you doing good are very, very small. You need wisdom. And there's more wisdom in these 5 books than anywhere else in the history of the world, in my opinion. And my job is to explain it. Because if you read it on your own, you will get obviously something out of it. But somebody needs to. It's like I have a trainer. I work out 3 days a week. If I didn't have a trainer, I would do some exercise, but it would be a joke. If it weren't for the trainer, I would do it wrong. I wouldn't do it as hard. I wouldn't do it as consistently. You know, she's like all trainers. She's somewhat of a sadist, and that's. I'm joking.
I know
but you
exactly
get my
what you
point.
mean. Yeah.
Because no pain, no
Exactly.
gain. It's as simple as that. But I'm not good at inflicting pain on myself. A trainer could do it, and so on. Anyway, you need a trainer if you read this stuff, and I'm your trainer, as it were. I make sense of it all, and on the rare occasion that something doesn't make sense, I say I cannot explain this. This doesn't make sense. And by the way, one of the few, I didn't have an explanation in volume 2, but I did have an explanation that I came across for volumes 3 and 4. So I explain just about everything.
It's interesting because I do believe that everything we're trying to figure out, all the wisdom in the world is already, the majority of it has already been sourced. Maybe less Elon trying to get to Mars. Maybe there's some new things we have to discover there. But a lot of the wisdom that would help us figure out our day to day, it's there. It's in Bible. It's in Torah. It's in things.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's the reason that wisdom is eternal, whether it's from Homer or Aristotle or Genesis or what have you. Wisdom is wisdom. And that's why I say, of course, look, the Musk, I believe, does have wisdom. And the reason Musk has wisdom is that the pursuit of truth is essentially the same thing as the pursuit of wisdom. And we don't have the pursuit of either truth or wisdom. I mean, if men give birth is an example of we have contempt for truth. You can't become the other sex. You can gain respect, but you can gain my acceptance of you. That's as a human being. You're a man. You say you're a woman. You dress like a woman. You don't have facial hair. In other words, you look like a woman, dress like a woman. I'll address you as a woman. It's none of my business what you were born or what you are biologically. But if you ask me, can a man become a woman? You're asking me a stupid question. It's not possible, because we're not just genitalia. Even if you could change genitalia, and you can't, you could change the cosmetics. You can't change the genitals. But even if we could, we can't change the chromosomes, and we can't change the brain. The male brain, I have a funny line on this. I always say, I'll believe that a man can become a woman if a trans woman all of a sudden starts finding things. Because any married man knows that his wife finds things and he can't find them. Do you know, this is a really funny story. I think it was in Pittsburgh, and I couldn't find my tablet. The electronic thing that you right. Okay, fine. So I couldn't find it. I called my wife. That's right. I called my wife in LA, and I go, honey, here I am in this Pittsburgh hotel room, and I can't find the tablet. She said, oh, well, I'm almost sure it's under the sheet in the other bed. And that's where it was. So my wife finds things when she's thousands of miles away. Anyway, my only point is, you can't become a man, you can't become a woman. But it doesn't mean that I don't address you as whatever you appear. That's fine. That's not an issue. So, but back to my point, the pursuit of truth and the pursuit of wisdom are almost synonymous.
Now, when somebody reads your work, they're going to see a couple things because you address both doubting God and arguing with God. So somebody's listening to this, they're saying, hey, wait a second. You just made the argument for there should be more God, there should be more religion. It's a net positive in society. That idea, without understanding, conflicts with the idea of doubting or arguing with God. So where does the doubting and arguing with God come into this narrative?
Well, the name of the people God chose to bring him into the world, Israel, what's the name of the Jewish people in the Bible, it has a definition. And it's not my definition. It's not King James' definition. It's the definition given in Genesis when God changes Jacob's name to Israel. The name is explained. It's in Hebrew, Yisrael. El is God. And Yisrak lehasri is to struggle with. So the name Israel means struggle with God. And therefore, by the way, the first Jew, the first monotheist is Abraham, and he argues with God. It's an extensive argument over God's desire to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah for their evil. Arguing with God is actually a healthy thing. I don't like meeting robotic religious people. I don't like meeting robotic secular people. So you're not only... It's not only okay to struggle with God or argue with God, it's sort of baked into the formula of belief. And as regards faith and doubt, I don't know how it's possible to live life and never doubt God. I don't know. Some people, it may be. And I quote an Orthodox rabbi. I quote a lot of Christians, but in this case, it's a rabbi. He said, God created doubt. I thought it was a very intelligent line, and he goes on why God would. If God wanted us to be absolutely certain about his existence, he could have made it that. He could have made that.
When you think about faith and miracles, because you speak a lot about faith and miracles, where does faith and miracle play into the concept of God and religion and the Bible? Because I think that if somebody feels that they want to start to believe or start to read into the wisdom of the Bible, they feel like there should be some miracle associated with God and their belief in God. They feel like there should be something that should happen in their life because they're putting their energy into God. For somebody who's secular, for example. So where does faith and miracle play into this story?
Well, first, you're probably right, but it's not my premise. If God didn't do any of the biblical miracles, I would believe in him just as much as I do now. The greatest miracle is that you and I are talking, that you and I exist, that the universe exists. That's, if one doesn't see that as a miracle, then one doesn't understand biblical faith. That's the miracle, that anything exists. So the thought that I need another miracle like a split sea or 10 plagues or for Christians, Jesus walking on water or the loaves and fish, I mean, or wine, this is, look, since you converted to Orthodox Judaism, you may have heard the phrase, I know it in Hebrew, al tismoch al hanes, do not rely on miracles. The ultimate miracle is our existence. And if one doesn't see that as a miracle, then I don't understand the nature of one's faith.
Today's episode is brought to you by Vanta. Now, listen up. This matters for your business. In today's digital landscape, security isn't optional, it's essential. Without it, deals stall, sales cycles stretch on, and scaling becomes very difficult. Now, why? Because investors, customers, and partners all expect businesses to demonstrate strong security practices before they commit. If you can't prove trust, you lose opportunities. So whether you're a startup founder trying to land that first big client or an established company scaling your security program, Vanta helps businesses of all sizes prove that they're trustworthy by automating compliance across 35 frameworks like SOC 2, ISO 27001, and HIPAA, the exact certifications your prospects are demanding. Here's why you need to pay attention. Vanta gives you back precious time that you're currently wasting on compliance. Their platform automates up to 90% of the tedious compliance work. It helps you respond to those endless security questionnaires up to 5 times faster, and it connects you with experts to get your security program running immediately. The results speak for themselves. A recent IDC report found that Vanta customers achieve over $535,000 per year in benefits, and the platform pays for itself in just 3 months. So you're going to join over 10,000 global companies like Atlassian, Quora, and Factory who use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. And don't miss this. For a limited time only, my listeners can get $1,000 off Vanta. That's real money back in your pocket. Visit vanta.com/Scott right now before this offer expires. That is VANTA.com/Scott. Prolon is a success story partner. Now, long weeks and busy weekends can leave everybody feeling depressed and tired. We work nonstop. And that's why I love Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet. I absolutely love this company. Let me explain how it works. Basically, they have a fasting mimicking diet that rejuvenates you from the inside out. They deliver plant-based soups, snacks, and drinks to keep your body in a fasting state while giving you the nutrition you need. And when your body's in a fasting state, this triggers cellular renewal, and it actually works. This is why I've loved intermittent fasting for so many years. This is the magic of Prolon. And the exciting exciting news is they just launched their next gen 5-day program. It has all the benefits they had before, but now they have 100% organic ingredients in all their foods, better taste, and ready to eat meals. They make the whole process easier. I tried the original Prolon program. I feel incredible whenever I do it. I personally can't wait to try this new and improved version. And if you've never tried them before, you are in for a treat, because the old one was great. I can't even imagine how good this new Prolon 5-day program is going to be. And for a limited time, Prolon is offering Success Story listeners, you guys, 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day programs. Just go to prolonlife.com/Clary to get your 15% discount and your bonus gift. prolonlife.com/Clary. Why do you point to another piece of wisdom that we can sort of pull from Numbers? You point to ingratitude as a source of evil. Why is that?
Because it is. There is no kind ingrate on earth, and there are no mean, grateful people. Gratitude is the mother of the two biggest things in life, goodness and happiness. You can't be good and you can't be happy if you're not grateful. And that's why God is so ticked off at the Jews in the Bible, which is why one of the reasons I believe in the Torah, I believe it in the Torah not only as valid and true, but as God-given, is because the Jews would never have made up how awful they come out in their own holy book. It had to have been ultimately God as the author. There is no example in any religion on earth that its holy book depicts its group so negatively as the Jews are depicted in their holy books. So either the Jews were so morally superior to anybody else that they could do this, or it was a divine authorship in some way. That's what I believe, because the Jews don't come across all that great, and in the Torah, non-Jews are heroic. Noah is a heroic non-Jew. The daughter of Pharaoh is a heroic non-Jew. Jethro, the Midianite priest, is a heroic non-Jew. God, as I write in my commentary, God is not ethnocentric. He's ethic-centric.
So this is why. So now I see another argument that you made, and the argument that maybe somebody who's secular or somebody who does not believe in God, they'd say, "Well, I don't need God and the Bible as a moral compass because I have a conscience." And you make the
conscience is as reliable as silly putty. You know what? Every Nazi had a conscience. Every communist had a conscience. Every murderer in prison has a conscience. The vast majority of human consciences are worthless unless the conscience is designed by a sense of values or a sense of a transcendent moral source higher than the conscience. For a handful of people, the conscience is sufficient to make a good person. That is one who does good. For the vast majority of people, we shape our conscience to comport with what we're doing. Murderers do not lose sleep at night. I know this from people who have worked with murderers. It is the very rare person who does bad. The only people racked by a guilty conscience are good people, and there are not that many of them. So you have to be a well-educated secular fool to believe that the conscience is sufficient.
So then what's the rational interpretation from biblical wisdom that would be a better version of a conscience, for like not a better version of a conscience, just a better version of a guide through life for somebody?
God, well, for one thing, God knows your behavior. So I give real down-to-earth examples. I actually did an hour on this subject on my radio show. So about a year ago, I rented a car in Minneapolis. I travel almost every week of the year, and almost every single place I rent a car. I like the freedom of a rental car. I don't want to be picked up by a local person. I don't want to take an Uber. I like to take my care myself. So I rented a car in Minneapolis, and the car they gave me was particularly big, a Suburban. I wasn't used to driving. Well, I do drive an SUV at home, but not the size of a Suburban. So I got stuck in between two cars in a parking lot. And there was no way I could extricate the car. I scraped the side of one of the cars. It wasn't horrible, but it was damage. So I left a note. I damaged your car. Here is my phone number. So I'm very open about this. There is part of me, a serious part of me, that said, God is watching you, Dennis. Will you leave your note or not? Will you leave a note or not? I could have gotten away with it like most people do. Most people don't leave notes. I mean, they've done surveys. Most people do not leave a note if they're certain they can get away with it. They just drive on. So their conscience isn't bothering them. And so you're asking, what is the substitute? The substitute is God watching me and judging me. That's why I'm not a big fan of God loves you compared to God judges you. I don't think you're going to get nearly as good a human being from God loves you as you would from God judges you. So yes, I believed that God was aware of what Dennis Prager was doing at that moment, and that if I didn't leave a note, he would be annoyed with me, even perhaps punish me. And this sounds primitive to the fools who think conscience is enough, except I would like to find out the question. Those who think God is watching and those who think conscience is enough, which group will have more people leaving a note at the car they scratched?
You do a lot of research into history of various civilizations that have fallen. When you look at where current Western society civilization is heading, what do you think 50 years from now society looks like if we continue on the trend of less God, more secular?
Well, go to Harvard and you'll know the future of Western civilization. Go to Berkeley, go to almost any university. They're moral wastelands. Spectacularly unhappy people, not having children, not getting married, and ruining civilization with a broken moral compass. The more elite the university, the more support Hamas has. Hamas are the Nazis of our day, and that they are happy to acknowledge. Just like the Nazis wanted to annihilate Jews, so do they. That's it. This is not an argument over politics. They wish to exterminate Jews. That's their charter, and they have support at the elite universities of the Western world. We will continue to remove girls' breasts, healthy breasts, if they say they're boys. So there is no hope for a post-biblical West. No hope. Freedom will be abolished because the freedom of speech is not a left-wing value. It is a liberal value, but not a left-wing value. And I have no hope for a post-biblical society.
So, I mean, this is a rational interpretation of a Bible is really a drop in the bucket of what has to happen to stop society from going in a very dark direction. This is one piece of work in the world that's a net positive. But what else do you think really has to happen? Like if you could have your perfect version of how do we move in a correct direction and not a direction that basically destroys all the affluence and the freedoms that we have right now, what's the...
Well, my long answer are the 5 books that I'm writing. So the 4th is coming out now, The Rational Bible. You can't intuit the correct response. Wisdom is learned. You can't intuit physics. You can't intuit math. You can't intuit a foreign language. You have to learn it. You have to learn right and wrong, and it has to be God-based. There's a law in the Torah that you cannot favor a poor man in a courtroom. Okay? because the Torah is preoccupied with justice, not social justice. There is no Hebrew term for social justice. I lecture in Hebrew. I know Hebrew really well, and I know biblical Hebrew really well. There is no term social justice. It's a made-up term by the left, like environmental justice, racial justice, gender justice. Whenever you add an adjective, why do they add adjectives? Why isn't the left just for justice? Because they're not for justice. If they were for justice, they wouldn't add adjectives. The moment you add an adjective to justice, it's not just. If you favor the poor man in the courtroom, there's a poor guy and there's Bill Gates, whom I can't stand, but doesn't matter. You rule by justice. You don't say, well, he's so poor, of course I will give him the judgment. That's social justice. Favoring the poor guy against the billionaire in a courtroom is social justice. It's not justice. So again, these are not things you intuit. You have to learn it. And that's the reason I've worked so hard on the rational Bible. This will give you asked me about ingratitude. The Israelites get out of Egypt, and what is the first thing they do? They complain to Moses, take us back to Egypt, the food was better. You know what lesson there is to learn, how relevant that is? People don't yearn to be free. That's a myth. It's like the conscience. It's baloney. It's wishful thinking. People do not yearn to be free. People yearn to be taken care of.
A big difference.
They preferred to be slaves with food they wanted than free with manna from heaven.
There's a few things you bring up that I think are interesting points, because they would be things that would turn someone off from religion. So you mentioned 2 points. You mentioned, why can only men be priests, which could, if somebody's looking at this from the outside in, they're saying, well, that's an antiquated, outdated thought. Why is that? This is exactly why I don't subscribe to religion. And then the second idea is fanaticism. So these two ideas, these ideas turn people off from religion, amongst others. So why would those ideas, first of all, explain to me your perception on those ideas, sort of potentially from a secular perspective, an antiquated ideology as well as fanaticism, and how do they play into someone's interpretation of Bible, of biblical literature? So
with regard to the priests, the Torah is adamant that there is a unique division in the human race between man and woman. It's the only division that really matters. The Torah doesn't care about color division, and it's not even noted. We're all created in God's image. But God created human being, male and female. That's the beginning of the I think it's 127, Genesis 127, I think. So at the very beginning, we're different. Male and female are different. Therefore, there will be, religiously speaking, different roles. Now, secularly speaking, there don't have to be different roles. If the wife is making a lot of money as a CEO, and the husband is not making a lot of money as a teacher, then clearly most couples will opt for relying on her income, and then he'll take perhaps the care of the kids more. Okay, that's there's no Torah position on that issue. That's just common sense. But when there's a religious role, yes, there is a desire to preserve the male-female distinction, and we have different roles. That's exactly right. And by the way, it has not helped Christianity or Judaism ordaining women.
No, so that was my question, though. It was like reconciling like what people would consider to be outdated beliefs. Because if somebody looks at one idea as outdated, then that person may be turned off from the entirety of the concept of religion.
You're right. That's correct. So my task, and any serious religious person's task, is to explain why it's not outdated. It's not in keeping with what you learn at secular universities and from secular media. That's true. So one of us is wrong. And in the meantime, we have data. No religion that has ordained women has thrived. And that's just, you may say, well, it's true, but they're not related facts. Okay, that's fair. You can say that.
I just want to take a second and thank Cornbread Hemp for supporting today's episode. Now, Cornbread Hemp CBD gummies have been this really nice addition to my wellness toolkit. I don't use them every day, just when I want to unwind after those extra busy weeks, but they're perfect for those moments when you want to take the edge off and just find your balance, really just shut off from work. And what makes them special is how Cornbread Hemp crafts them. They only use the flower of USDA organic hemp plants. That's the best part. For the purest, most potent experience, no fillers, no artificial fluff, just clean, full spectrum goodness in delicious watermelon, berry, and peach flavor. I keep them in my nightstand for those moments when I just need a little extra help relaxing, and I love how transparent they are too. Every batch is third-party lab tested, so you know exactly what you're getting, and they put together a special offer for all Success Story podcast listeners. All listeners can save 30% off their first order. Just head to cornbreadhemp.com/success and use code success at checkout. That's cornbreadhemp.com/success, code success for 30% off your first order of these amazing gummies. FreshBooks is supporting today's episode, and if you've ever wondered how successful entrepreneurs stay on top of their finances while growing their business, the answer is FreshBooks. The numbers don't lie. Over 30 million people have chosen FreshBooks, processing more than 60 billion in invoices and saving an incredible 192 hours every year on accounting tasks. Think about it. That's nearly 8 full days you could get back to focus on what really matters: growing your business. FreshBooks is more than just accounting software. It's your all-in-one financial command center. Create professional estimates, track time, automatically bill clients, and capture expenses on the go. Plus, it integrates seamlessly with over 100 business tools you already use, all backed by award-winning customer service. If you're ready to stop drowning in receipts and you're ready to stop chasing down payments, here's what I want you to do. Head over to freshbooks.com to start your 30-day free trial, no credit card required. And for all you Success Story listeners out there, I've got something special. Get an exclusive 60% off for 6 months when you visit freshbooks.com/pricing-offer. Transform your business with FreshBooks today. That's freshbooks.com/pricing-offer for 60% off. So then when you put this workout into the world and somebody wants to go pick it up, go sort of explore some of the, I mean, if people don't know, I mean, outside of the work you've done at PragerU, you put out a lot of different content. You teach on a lot of different topics, but this one's probably the most important, yet the most difficult to communicate its importance to a secular person. So if somebody is just going down the rabbit hole and they've never consumed your content, like what's outside of everything we spoke about today, what is and I do think there has to be an argument compelling enough that somebody will start to consume, start to pull out wisdom from the Bible, from the work that you're doing. So what is that argument? What is like the lesson you want to leave people with, or the wisdom or the insight, so that they start to go down the rabbit hole, they start to look at the wisdom, how they can apply biblical wisdom to their own life and their own problems?
Well, that is why I have not devoted my life, and I brought a lot of people to Bible-based religion. I mean, a lot. I claim, and I'm if I'm wrong, just give me a name. I don't know if there's a Christian living today who has brought more people back to church than I have, and I'm a Jew saying this. I don't know who has brought more Jews to Judaism who is living today than I have. And this sounds like a boast. It is a boast. It's not an insult. I think it's a boast, but I'm not saying it to people to pat me on the back. I'm saying it because I want people to understand why I'm effective. I do not argue for God's existence. I argue for God's necessity. And that persuades people far, far more. Because if you believe God exists, it doesn't change your behavior. It's okay. Now I believe in God. Great. Okay. Will I act differently tomorrow? Probably not. The necessity question is everything. Why is God necessary? That there is a judge watching and who judges you and who has given you a guideline in these 5 books on how to lead a wise and good life. That's big deal. That wisdom is there's no secular institution with wisdom. Not one. The most radically secular institutions are universities, and they are the stupidest of all our institutions. There is more idiocy at the university, and I've said this since I was at Columbia in the 1970s. This is not new. It's just worse today. I mean, they said men and women were basically the same when I was at school in the 70s. But today it's gone beyond that. Now you not only are men and women not different, if you think you're a woman, you're a woman. That they didn't say that in the 70s. This idiocy is relatively new. They were morally confused about the U.S. and the Soviet Union. That was my field of study, Soviet affairs. I learned Russian. I went to communist countries regularly. And I was taught that, it's not a moral battle, America and Soviet Union. It's not freedom versus tyranny. It's two superpowers fighting for hegemony on planet Earth. So when I make the argument for the necessity of God in the Bible, it resonates.
When people start to consume this work, what would be your advice on how they can start to incorporate some of these ideas into their own life if they are not religious?
Yeah, well, they will. I mean, for example, you can't read my extended analysis of ingratitude and stay ungrateful. I mean, just as one example, or my explanation of the Ten Commandments and how important honor your father and mother is. It's the only of one of the Ten Commandments that has a reward, and as I point out, and this has affected, I don't know, maybe millions of people. There's no commandment to love your parents. There is a commandment to love God, to love your neighbor, to love the stranger, but not to love your parents. You don't have to love your parents. You just have to treat them with honor. You have to honor them. Now, I know people say, well, what if my parents, horribly abused me and molested me? Okay, fine. It's like saying people should obey speed limit laws. But what if somebody in your car got a heart attack? Should you still drive slowly? Now, exceptions don't prove anything. There are times that seatbelts kill people, yet it's true that seatbelts save lives. So why I think honor your father and mother is so important is that Nazism and communism and all tyrannies begin with the reduction of parental authority. And that's what we're seeing with the left in America. That's how I know that unchecked it will lead to tyranny, because it undermines parental authority. In Minnesota and California, there are laws that if your 8-year-old daughter says she's a boy at school, you cannot inform the parents of this case. That is amazing. Kids in California are now fed lunch and breakfast at school. All that says to kids is the state feeds you, not your parents.
If you wanted to, I mean, you've put out these books now. If you want to leave the audience with one last piece of wisdom, what would that last piece of wisdom or insight be?
Yeah, basically, if you want to be a good human being, if you want to be a happier human being, these 5 books provide the answers.
Where do you want to send people to consume more of your information? But I didn't want to interrupt your thoughts, so we can get that after.
Oh, no. That was sufficient. You asked me to summarize it in basically a couple of sentences. Look, people should read the reviews on the Rational Bible of the volumes that have come out. Again, brand new volume 4 is coming out now. And there are about 5,000 reviews. And many speak of it changed their life. I spoke at Brown University in Rhode Island a couple of weeks ago, and a young man came over to me, a student at Brown, says, I'm from India. It was clear in both his look and his accent. Said, I just want you to know you've made me conservative. And I go, thank you. He said, but that's not all. You also brought me to God. And And I said, wow, thank you for telling me. Oh, that's not all. And I converted to Christianity. He was a Hindu. And so here's a Hindu telling a Jew, thanks to you, I converted to Christianity. And I don't see how a rational person reading these books will not be affected, because it addresses reason. If you really care about evil, which is my preoccupation, I want to reduce evil on earth, then I would ask people to read the Rational Bible. And by the way, it doesn't matter which volume you start with. You should read all of them. I don't say this to earn money, folks, just for the record. Nobody writes Bible commentaries to get rich, okay? Oh, wow. He's written a book on Numbers. He's going to make a fortune. Okay, nobody ever heard of Numbers, which is the fourth of the 5 books. But I would actually ask people to get the newest one, because then you'll realize it's not because of the famous stories of Garden of Eden or 10 Commandments. These 5 books are so awesome, it doesn't matter which one you start with. But might as well start with the latest. It's got my latest insights. And it's called the Rational Bible Numbers. But, the question is, if a person is convinced that they know what is good and they know what is true, then, and that they have reached some ethical pinnacle, they may not want to read it.
But you know what? The best people on this earth, there is never a point where they are finished learning. So I think this is...
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's the beauty. That's correct. My dad died at 96, and I remember watching him. He was about 95, and he was avidly reading a book. And I remember thinking, wow, he's at the stage where he doesn't buy green bananas. And there he is, devouring a book, with one foot in the next world. But that, if you want to learn and grow, it doesn't matter how old you are.
And it doesn't matter, like you mentioned before, it doesn't matter what faith you are either. I mean, this is something.
Oh, no, totally. When I write these books, my vision is, will I persuade a peasant in China who never heard of the Bible, never heard of it? That's my target audience. The intelligent, rural Chinese.
That's very true. That's a great avatar. If you can find a way to communicate a compelling message to that person.
That's
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
We'll put all the links in the show notes. I mean, what's the best website if people, because you're going to keep writing, what's the best website people should go to?
Yeah, well, DennisPrager.com, okay. And you see all things Perfect. Dennis.
I asked this question to everybody before we close it out. Just one last thought. You've had a great career, many seasons to your life and your work. If you could go back and you could tell your 20-year-old self one thing, what would that be?
So I'll disappoint you, probably, and many of your viewers and listeners. I was given a gift at 20. I had a lot of wisdom at 20. I'm really living out what I understood then was important. And I'll give you one example. I knew at 20, I really knew that I will be old one day and I will die one day. And I was a very happy young person and I'm a happy old person. But I knew that the key to life is to be able to look back at some age and think, now I led a full life. I led an important life. I did good. I made an impact on some other people. I didn't live for the moment. How much money am I making now was never a question for one day in my life. If I made good money, it's a blessing, but I didn't want to be poor, but I had zero ambition to be wealthy. Zero. I knew what was important at 20. So there isn't much I would tell my 20-year-old self.